While you're trying to work out how you're going to pay for the increase in your power bill come July, remember that's up to 9% after the decision of the energy market operator last week, the Prime Minister is still off on his green flights of fancy. I mean, you'd think after making this promise that right now his number one priority, staring at an election in 2 months or less, would be giving cost of living relief with lower power bills.
Reducing power prices by $275.
Reducing power prices by $275.
By 2025, $275 a year.
$275 a year.
We'll get power prices down by $275 a year.
$275 for the average house, lower in 2025 than today.
I'm going to keep playing it. I know you're probably sick of it, but that needs to be branded into the memories of every Australian before they go to vote. 2025, we were told it would be. Power bills $275 cheaper. Well, if you're in New South Wales, next financial year they'll be $1,000 more than Anthony Albanese promised. Anyway, be that as it may, you'd think, given that massive failure, that he might be a little more conciliatory about his green dream for the next few months. But not so. You'll remember Energy Minister Chris Bowen last week blamed the increase in power bills not on his energy policies, but on coal.
One of the reasons for this decision today is spikes caused by coal-fired power stations breaking down. Not a day in the last 2 years have we had a coal-fired power station not break down somewhere in Australia.
Now, I explained on Thursday night why that's bunkum. The government has subsidised renewables so heavily that no one has spent money on maintaining our coal infrastructure, even though we need it, because we don't have enough renewables. But the Prime Minister today is still banging on about how important green hydrogen is to our manufacturing, and green hydrogen, of course, is powered by renewable energy.
Green hydrogen, we believe, has a role to play in Australia's future, and indeed that's recognised around the globe. When the solar industry was starting off decades ago, there were many who said, it doesn't stack up. We know today that solar energy is the cheapest form of new energy. Green hydrogen Australia is in a unique position of having the best solar resources in the world, amongst the best wind resources in the world. We have everything that can go into the creation of green hydrogen to create green metals.
So if you don't believe in green hydrogen, then you're a Luddite. You're like a solar naysayer. It's the next big thing. We are, according to Albanese, the envy of the world.
We are the envy of countries like Japan and South Korea, who simply aren't in a position to have the space to be able to have this investment. And that's why companies like Rio Tinto are backing renewables, are backed by, of course, gas, in order to be a part of the transition to a clean energy economy. Australia needs to be ambitious. We must be optimistic. We can create more jobs here. We can be a renewable energy superpower for the world.
We must be ambitious. We must be optimistic. I guess that ambition is why South Australia shelved plans for a $600 million hydrogen power plant at Whyalla last month after the steelworks there went into administration. But that didn't stop the federal government immediately creating a $1 billion green iron fund, $500 million of which is going to Whyalla to help, quote-unquote, decarbonise the steelworks. And then they stumped up another $755 million this week for green hydrogen in the metals industry. I guess Anthony Albanese missed this story in The Australian 2 weeks ago, that 99% of the touted capacity of hydrogen projects in Australia have not moved beyond the concept or approval stage. Perry Williams reported that nearly 100 hydrogen projects have been proposed in Australia, with the vast majority based on green or renewable sources. However, 61 individual projects have been quietly archived, with work on the developments either scrapped or on hold due to market conditions or failing to move beyond feasibility studies, an industry list compiled by the Australian research agency, the CSIRO, reveals. His story went on to say that new modelling produced for the Australian energy market operator has also conceded the cost, timing and scale of potential hydrogen economy in Australia is now highly uncertain. How's that ambition and optimism going, PM? And he must have missed this yarn the next day, that Twiggy Forrest, one of the biggest supporters of green hydrogen in the country, had cancelled an investment deal with the major US hydrogen company Plug Power to be a potential supplier of electrolysers for their projects and a joint venture partner with Fortescue in the US hydrogen market. And this one the day after, that only 5% of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation's $300 million fund for green hydrogen had been spent since 2020. Perry Williams again reported that the CEFC said just 2 investments had been made in the past 5 years, totalling $15.7 million of the $300 million. Some $12.5 million was spent on Arc Energy's Sun HQ hydrogen hub in Townsville, where green hydrogen will be produced from a 1 megawatt electrolyser. The other $3.2 million was invested in the Murray Valley Hydrogen Park in Victoria, a 10 megawatt electrolyser developed by the Australian Gas Infrastructure Group. Now, you might wonder what green hydrogen really matters to most of us, given there's no suggestion of major-scale hydrogen power being used. But the problem is that building up hydrogen, green hydrogen, is intrinsically linked to the government's net zero goals. To make green hydrogen, you need renewable energy. So we ramp up the production of that, and those net zero targets demand green hydrogen. So we pump up the production of that, except that we're clearly not pumping up the production of green hydrogen, despite the fact we're spending billions and billions of taxpayer dollars. So we kill ourselves remaking the energy system, which has led to higher power prices, to meet net zero targets we'll never achieve. Here's another story the PM must have missed in the Oz a week ago, that the Albanese government will fail to hit its targets of 82% renewables by 2030, with green energy only reaching 65% by the end of the decade, even under a best-case scenario, according to Rystad Energy modelling. We are not meeting these targets. It won't happen. But they're driving up bills anyway. So cut the nonsense. Stop talking up green hydrogen. Stop talking up renewables. Just admit you got it wrong and we need to slow down to get power bills down. I showed you the PM before saying that we're the envy of the world when it comes to green hydrogen. Well, I don't think we're the envy of the world when it comes to power prices.